the province of Ontario in 2011 initiated a municipal infrastructure strategy. And that was basically saying to municipalities that they would give them significantly more money, but in return for those funds, they wanted to see asset management plans. The issue that the province found in doing that was that the practices around asset management, even though the province had issued guidance on how to do asset management plans, was all over the place. And they didn't see any connection between the asset management plans and better infrastructure related outcomes. So that's part of the story here. But part of also the story around infrastructure in Ontario is a municipal funding of municipal infrastructure in Ontario. All of the same issues that are faced in the US, not enough money, your infrastructure is deteriorating, and you want to show value for investment. The other problem that the province was trying to deal with in asking municipalities to develop asset management plans had to do with what other people have called the squeaky wheel problem. It's basically, it was the province often faced scenarios where municipalities would say, we really need money because our bridge is falling apart and we need that money right now. And when you're at a place where you're sort of funding emergency repairs, it's extremely expensive, it's non-optimal from a life cycle management perspective, and it prevents you from doing and funding other things, other priorities. So there was actually one case that I worked on when I was at the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, where there was such a case like that. Roads were falling apart. There was a problem with a bridge, and the municipality came to the province, and when the province went to inspect or evaluate or assess the situation, it was the municipality was building a new administration building or had just recently built a new administration building, and yet all of its existing core infrastructure was falling apart. So that was a real wake-up call in terms of how should the province respond better to the way it structures its funding. So the funding is kind of like the carrot, and this may not be the best analogy, but the funding is like the carrot, and rather than calling the regulation a stick, let's just say it's a requirement. And so so after the experience of having a voluntary kind of guidance and finding that municipalities were not really fully in compliance with that, about 5 or 6 years later, the province passed in 2017 a regulation requiring municipalities to submit asset management, to have asset management policies and to have asset management plans that are updated at least every 5 years on 5-year cycles. So the first cycle started in 2019, where all municipalities were required to have a strategic asset management policy. And it laid out the principles that you'd expect for good asset management around life cycle management of your assets, levels of service, risk management, a long-term financing strategy, consideration of the environment, all of those kinds of things. The deadline was for municipalities to have approved asset management plans for their core, what's called their core infrastructure, their roads, their bridges, their water and wastewater systems, and so forth. By 2024, that has to extend to all facilities. So think libraries, recreation centers, parks, all of those kinds of things that are in addition to your core infrastructure. And by 2025, it has to be all of that, plus articulating your proposed levels of service, which actually could be lower than your current levels of service, and also having a long-range financing strategy to show that you can pay for the levels of service that the municipality has committed to. So the benefit for Ontario is that it has aligned asset management as an institutional practice associated with infrastructure funding at the provincial level and also at the federal level.